Hey friends, Ash here with Gents, and you may or may not be able to hear that, but there's actually a thunderstorm that's rolling through here right now. So you might catch some thunder in the background, some rain, whatever. It's kind of been coming and going all day today. And that actually gave me an idea for this video. So these fragrances are fragrances that are maybe a little bit chaotic, strong, intense fragrances at times, whether in the opening or the dry down. They do things maybe a little bit differently. Sometimes they come across even abrasive. So that was the idea, kind of random, and it was just, again, inspired by this storm that we've been dealing with today. So let's jump into this. The first fragrance is one I've talked about a number of times on this channel, and a bunch of people have talked about as well. It's really popular, super strong. It's gonna last all day, project really heavily, and it's a great fall and winter nighttime fragrance. Red Tobacco by Mancera. So this one has tobacco, vanilla, cinnamon, oud, saffron, and patchouli, some of the notes in the fragrance. And this one, especially in the opening, can definitely come across chaotic, almost jumbled. When you first spray this one on, it's just a big blast of notes. You've got a lot of spice going on, a lot of sweetness. You've got that tobacco, you've got oud. There's a ton going on in that opening. And for a lot of people, it's gonna be a little bit abrasive. It's not gonna be super enjoyable. Once you get used to it though, the opening smells awesome. And for me, it took multiple wearings of this before I came around on the opening and started to really enjoy it. Now, once the opening does tone down, once those edges start to get rounded off, it's a really nice fragrance. Really sweet, really warm, very rich. Like I said, lasts all day or night. So there's a lot going right for this fragrance, and also it's Mancera, so as far as niche fragrances go, pretty affordable. It's just that opening. That opening can be too much for some people. And though this one's not on the level of something like a Creed Aventus, you have started to see other fragrances, especially in that niche realm, come out with things that smell like maybe they were a little bit inspired by Red Tobacco. Like they enjoyed the way that Mancera put this one together, and they thought, well, maybe we can do that and round off the edges even more, clean up the opening, whatever. But I've seen a few different niche fragrances come out over the past year or two that have a little bit of a resemblance to this one. So that's the first one in this list, Mancera Red Tobacco. Next up is a fragrance that, if memory serves correctly, I think Jeremy Fragrance hyped at one point. I think he said that it was a really good fragrance or something like that. I seem to recall that happening, though I could be wrong there. It's this one, Atkinson's Oud Save the King. This one, of course, does have oud as a note. I mean, it's there in the name. It also has suede, sandalwood, tea, and orris, some of the notes in the fragrance. So a little bit of a different note breakdown than what you would typically find in a scent. And this one actually has a resemblance to a much more affordable fragrance called Scent Story 24 Gold. That one you can find at discounters, I think, 20, 25 bucks, maybe 30, but a lot more affordable than this one. Even has the same gold and black color scheme as 24 Gold, but obviously this one, Oud Save the King, much higher quality overall. So this one's gonna have a nice suede leather. The oud in here is not animalic, it's not funky, it's actually quite sweet, same with 24 Gold. It's a little bit cloying potentially. If you go really heavy with this one, it has that capability of being a cloying fragrance where it just starts to really get dense and heavy with the sweetness in the scent. We've got creamy sandalwood in here as well. And then those more interesting notes, those nuances of tea and orris. So it does things slightly differently than you would usually expect in an oud fragrance. A lot of times with oud, you expect maybe rose or saffron, your more typical accompanying notes. But with this one, throwing in the tea and orris shakes things up a bit. And the performance on that one, really good, just like you would expect with an oud-based fragrance. So you're gonna get great performance, longevity, projection, the whole shebang. Next one is a little bit different. It's from the house of Durga, which is a house that I really enjoy. This one, kind of like a twist on a barbershop fragrance, which makes sense because the name is Burning Barbershop. So Durga like to do little stories, little backstories with their fragrances. And I'm not gonna read you the whole backstory, but this one essentially is supposed to be as if a barbershop back in the, I believe, early 1900s. Could be wrong there, but again, I don't have the story in front of me here. But anyway, an old-timey barbershop, we'll say, caught on fire. And then afterwards, this was found amongst the rubble, the ruins of the barbershop. And it was basically like those tonics that they would put on you back in the day when you were getting a shave or getting your hair done. So you're gonna have these barbershop facets in the fragrance, but then you're also going to have this little bit of smokiness, which again is where the burning comes into play here. So it's got lavender, mint, and vanilla in here. That's where you're gonna get more of the sweetness and the freshness in the fragrance. Lavender, of course, being just a complete classic note in barbershop fragrances or just men's classic fragrances in general. Even today, lavender, one of the most popular men's notes that's ever been. But then this one has like a woody sort of smokiness to it, which is going to kind of turn the classic barbershop fragrance on its ear a little bit. So you have almost like you took tiny facets from something like Imaginary Authors, A City on Fire, like little tiny facets of that smokiness, and you combined it with a barbershop fragrance, a fresher, sweeter barbershop fragrance. You just took those two and poured them together and stirred it up and came up with this. So you're gonna get a lot of the same wearability that you would get from a typical barbershop scent, but with that added twist, which may actually make this better for fall and winter time rather than spring and summer, which is when you would more typically wear a barbershop scent. It's got really good performance as well, and the quality on it, quite good. So again, with this one, just that little bit of a twist, that little bit of chaos bottled in here. That's why I wanted to feature that one. Next up, we have a fragrance that for a lot of people was a club staple. It was a fragrance that for a bunch of guys out there, they would wear it to the club and it would just kill it, and they'd get compliments and people would love it. But then it kind of seemed to fade, not really be as popular as it was for that short period of time. And now it's kind of forgotten a little bit. It's that one, Black Excess by Paco Rabanne, overshadowed by 1 Million and Invictus nowadays as well. And this is the old style bottle. It's very thin, and then it has this Zippo style cap. When you first spray this one on, you're gonna get a good amount of lemon. So you're gonna get this citrus right off the top, but this one sweetens up a bunch as it dries down on your skin. Praline being one of the main notes you're gonna pick up from this. There's also cinnamon in here, so bits of spice. There's Tolu balsam, there's rosewood. Like I said, a lot of people wore this to the club. It's gonna be because of the sweetness in the fragrance. It's got really good performance, good projection, good longevity. But for whatever reason, the type of sweetness in here just didn't quite catch on like in 1 Million or Invictus by Paco Rabanne. That's why I keep bringing those up, because they're all in the same house. This one now comes out in a different type of bottle, so it doesn't look like this anymore. These are the older style bottles. If you buy this brand new nowadays, it's gonna be in a bottle that looks similar to the Pure Excess bottles, Pure Excess and Pure Excess Night. So with this one, I wouldn't say it's really quite chaotic, but it is intensely sweet and strong off my skin. And it is an interesting take on that club sweetness, as I mentioned before. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this one up. Black Excess, you know, nighttime, excess, being excessive, potentially going out and partying all night. That's kind of what they were trying to get across there. And it works, even if it's forgotten. That's gonna take me to the last fragrance on this list. And I do believe that this fragrance is the most divisive of this bunch. So most of the ones that I've mentioned have more people that love it than dislike it. This one seems to be, like I said, more divisive. More people seem to dislike this one, especially people just starting to get into fragrances, or people that are more into hyper versatile blue, modern mint kind of fragrances, because this one definitely has kind of an old school throwback vibe to it. But people that have been collecting for a very long time seem to, in general, really like this one. It's Abbey Rouge by Guerlain. Now, if you hate this, more power to you, do your thing. If you love this, same thing, more power to you, do your thing. One of the main floral notes I get from this is carnation, which was used heavily in men's fragrances in decades past, but you don't see it very often in modern men's scents. Carnation kind of got faded out a little bit over time. The other floral note that I pick up the most is rose. You're also gonna find lemon in here. Lemon was used heavily in fragrances in the past. It's still obviously used all the time. It was just used more in the past than it is now. You're also gonna find leather, vanilla, some spices, some woods in here. As I said, this one is divisive. Some guys will buy this because you can pick it up for a pretty good price at discounters. So, you know, it's a well-known name. It's a fragrance that maybe people have seen on Fragrantica or other places like that, and they're curious about it, and they'll blind buy it and then smell it and go, yeah, I'll never wear that. It's definitely intense for me, very intense. When you first spray this one on, it's right there. You can't mistake it. You can't avoid it. When you wear this, it's on there. It's not the kind of fragrance that's easily covered up, or the type of fragrance that's going to immediately evaporate and go away. It's the type of fragrance that, for me anyway, even if I went and tried to scrub it off, you know, got in the shower and like really tried to get it off of my skin, when I hop out of the shower, if I do that, it's still gonna be there, lingering. And while for me it's not really chaotic, for some people, when they spray this one on and they get hit with that initial opening salvo, that big blast off the top, they're gonna go, oh God, no. And they're not gonna wait for that dry down. They're not gonna wait for the evolution of the fragrance. And they're just gonna throw in the towel. For me though, it's definitely a fragrance worth wearing and worth experiencing. The changes as it dries down, as you get more floral notes in, and then you get leather, spices, as I said, woods, vanilla sweetness, a lot of different nuances, things swirling in and out of there. To an extent, it can do similar things in the opening that Red Tobacco can. By that, I don't mean that these smell anything alike. I mean that when you smell the opening of this one, it could have the effect that the opening of this one does for some people, where you smell it and just go, nope, give up. I would encourage you though, if you own this fragrance already and if you've written it off, maybe get like tester strips sometimes and give it a spray on there and just revisit it every once in a while. It does have an old school vibe to the fragrance, certainly, but in certain situations, it's a killer. And by that, I mean, for me personally, more like formal situations, office situations, and neutral weather situations. All right, guys, it's gonna do it for me. Actually, it looks like the sun is starting to come out. The thunder is kind of receding, so maybe it's gonna brighten up. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Appreciate all your support. If you smelled these fragrances, let me know what you think about them. Do you like these ones? Don't like them? Whatever. Also, make sure to like the video, comment on the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video.